Coming from Landmark College in Putney, Vermont, this is Meg Murtha, an academic advisor at the college. Landmark was founded 30 years ago as the first college in the country to exclusively serve students with various kinds of learning disabilities. Today, I would like to share the unusual story of perseverance and resiliency of one of my students, Arabella Devine. Arabella came to this tiny town in southeastern Vermont in the fall of 2013, directly from Hong Kong, where she was born and raised. Some might consider Arabella's first semester at the college a bit of a disaster. Down to just 3 classes, ending up on academic warning with a rather dismal GPA of 1.70. Many students would have simply given up at that point. Not Arabella. Fast forward to today. Arabella holds the position of president of the Student Government Association at the college and will be graduating from Landmark on May 14th with an associate's degree in liberal studies. Among other accomplishments, she has participated in a study abroad program in Costa Rica and has secured a prestigious internship in New York City this summer with the architectural firm of Fradkin and McAlpin. How does a student make such a remarkable transition? Are there lessons to be learned from Arabella's experiences? This is what makes her personal story so compelling. Dorothy Osterholt, one of the founding members of the college, is joining us today to interview Arabella about her academic journey. Dottie was one of Arabella's professors early on. Well, not that first semester. And in my opinion, she has made a pivotal difference in this student's life. I will turn this over to the two of you.
Thank you for sitting down with me today, Arabella. I came to know you in 2014 when you were in my Introduction to Education class. At that time, I really noticed this keen intellect and curiosity about learning. Your academic success, however, was stymied by complex barriers that you kept bumping into, and you yourself were quite frustrated by the challenges that you faced to maintain your academic performance. Over time, though, since 2014, I saw you begin to utilize some strategies that you developed for yourself, that you learned here from Landmark. And then eventually, finally, you stepped through that cloud that you were sort of covered with, and it came out the other side a very different student. And it's a thrill to sit down and sort of talk to you about that experience, not only for my own sake, because I've known you since that time, but also for other students to hear your story and sort of take something away from your own experience. To help explain your challenges better, maybe you could explain your own learning diagnosis and what age you were when you were diagnosed.
Well, actually, my mother had the idea of taking me in after she heard about Landmark, because in the school system that I was in, I'm from Hong Kong, so it was kind of different, but there was not much awareness of this kind of thing, and so I was, I think, 19 when I got diagnosed, and it was in my psychoed testing, they called it an executive functioning disorder. And to this day, I don't know what that means. Like, if you Google it, nothing comes up. It's sort of like, it was in capital letters, so it seemed kind of official, but it's not really a real thing. But it was good enough to get in here.
It seems like even though the label that you were presented to didn't seem like a real thing to you, the challenges that accompanied that seemed real. Was that true? Or no?
Well, I think in the beginning, I literally just thought that I was stupid and lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I remember, like, when I first came to Landmark, like, I was really fascinated by other people's, like, learning disabilities. So that was always, like, one of my first questions is, what is your LD? And if they asked me back, my answer would be, like, well, I have this thing, it's like EFD, but I don't think it's real. But yeah, and I'm just like stupid. And I would literally like say that to people I didn't even know. It was so weird.
Given your challenges, it's wonderful, though, that you never lost your love of learning along whatever journey you have experienced up to that time. Did you always enjoy school at a young age?
I mean, I always had issues with school, but I think I always enjoyed learning. And I think my in-classroom experience was generally a positive one, and my issues were more around, like, all of the expectations outside of class, or like when we were doing independent work inside of class, that kind of thing.
I see. I know that when you were in my class, I would watch you take an idea or a concept and sort of dissect it, dig deep, in multiple ways so that you could challenge the validity of the idea and then provide interesting and new ways to look at those ideas. And that's how I saw you as a student. How do you see yourself as a student?
I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't know. I suppose, like, from my perspective, I'm thinking a lot more about, more superficial things and, like, grades and, getting to class and all of those things.
So sort of the measurements of whatever it is that you're doing.
Exactly.
The
I
end
don't,
result.
Since I'm inside myself, I'm not, like, also outside myself looking at myself.
Right. That would be hard, yeah. Since learning, we all know, is an emotional experience on all levels, can you remember a good moment that you've really it's stuck in your mind as something to remember that's really good about education?
Well, as you know, I have a terrible memory, but I think I have moments like that, like, all of the time in my classes, and especially when I feel like I'm working really well with a professor, someone who kind of understands me, has taken the time to understand me, and when I feel challenged appropriately and all of those good things. Right.
Well, I think too that it's a multifaceted process, and even though you have a bad memory, what you're remembering is when you're, really thoroughly engaged in that process and you see some positive outcome, right? I could certainly measure your success throughout your journey here at Landmark by looking at your grades, certainly in your GPA, but I would be interested in hearing about how you think that Landmark College has helped you to create some of those successes.
I think it was really, really important for me to be in a community of people who struggled. And, different people here have different struggles. And I think, it's not about finding people with the same struggles, but just finding people who, are having issues, and you can kind of, like, complement each other, but also, I don't know, there's like, it's really crazy to be in a system where you're just not working. Like, I was the only person in my school to not go to college immediately. And, it's like, it's very like, I almost felt like I didn't know what was real or what to believe about myself or my life. And like, I think being around other people who have, you know, similar narratives validated mine.
What do you believe about yourself now?
I'm still learning. Yeah. I feel like being here has given me a real, like, passion for people who have struggled, you know, in a lot of different ways. I don't, you know, LD is a new thing, and I think in a way diagnoses don't mean very much, you know, from my perspective. Like, if I wasn't, you know, born into the sort of privilege that I was, like, I would probably like have ended up homeless or something, you know, like, it's, you know, and I wouldn't have a diagnosis. Like, so to me, it's like all of these sort of outcomes are really stemming from the same sort of like issues. And I want to do something with that.
Interesting. That's great. I think probably a lot of students come to understand that perspective. Well, they're in this kind of environment for sure. We've worked together for quite a while now, and I was wondering if there's anything about learning in general, just the experience of learning, that you've never told me, or perhaps you haven't expressed before.
I don't know. I mean, probably. I can't think of anything.
Okay. Okay. If you were going to give some window of advice to students at the beginning of their process or their journey through success, what would you say?
Well, okay, first of all, to clarify, where would the beginning of the process be? The beginning
of their time here.
Okay.
And
I think that, you know, it's it's kind of a cliche here, but like, just use all of the support services, go to all of the office hours you can, all of that sort of thing.
What did those do for you specifically?
I mean, it's been really different, like, with, you know, working with different people, and I definitely feel like, you know, sometimes I work with someone and it just, we're not on the same page, or they don't get me. But I feel like if you keep going and keep, you know, looking for those people, you know, who will, or, you know, will make a really solid effort to understand you, you can really, like, push through, like, the challenges that you have. And, you know, like, usually those challenges are not, like, really, like, something very tangibly, you know, like, tangible, like dysgraphia or whatever. They're usually more, like, psychosocial at this point in time. Because, like, if you're at the point where you're coming to Landmark, you know, you've already spent, like, years and years and years in an educational system, and it hasn't been working, and that's why you're here. So, you know, inevitably you end up with these sort of, like, beliefs and behaviors that don't work for you.
So sort of reframing that, allowing yourself the flexibility to reframe that experience, that learning experience. At what point do you see things really improving for yourself? What made the difference?
I think it was a little bit of, you know, confidence building in, you know, when I'm not getting, like, the kind of support that I need, that, you know, confidence that I, like, my appraisal of that is correct and I should, you know, deal with it in some way, instead of questioning myself, which would, you know, which sort of I feel like my problems are always if I question myself and then I find it difficult to move forward or like pick an action to like deal with the situation, you know?
So given that level of knowledge that you know about yourself, if you had the opportunity to look backwards and tell the young Arabella all those years ago some advice, what would you say to her?
Honestly, kick up more of a fuss. You know, I think I had some instincts about what I needed, and I wasn't pursuing them because I didn't believe in myself. And it was, you know, it's really just about like following your nose until you find something that works. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today, Arabella.
Thank you.
And congratulations again for your soon graduation coming up in a couple weeks.